So those of you that are watching, we're talking about building your prospecting lighthouse. This month's theme is agency organic prospecting, and we're going to go right into it. If you are referencing the SaaS Fast Track program, we're going off of Module 5, Discussion 3. Okay, so let's talk about what exactly a prospecting lighthouse is, right? It's a centralized set of digital assets that you want to set up for yourself organically in case if the clients that you have or your prospects were to research you or look you up, they find the right information about you. Okay? You don't want them to just go find any information, especially some of you have multiple industries, right? So when they look you up, guess what? Paulson's doing automotive, but I'm talking to him about my dental practice, right? Like you don't want that disengagement, right? So essentially what you want to do is grab control of these things and make sure your lighthouse is set up properly. So how does a prospecting lighthouse really help you? First things first, you guys are able to see my slides, right? Just double checking. Okay, cool. First things first, it shows who you are in the market. Okay, you ever watch like marketers out there and you see all the different things they have and you're wondering how in the world are they doing all these things? When you go to their personal branding stuff, there's like 5,000 things there. When you go to the LinkedIn, it seems like there's a team working behind them. And then they have paid ads running. And then I'm getting bombarded with their emails on top of notifications, right? You ever wonder how in the world are they pulling this off with like a 1 or 2 man show, right? And I'll show you exactly how it should be. Really what they have is a lighthouse system, right? So the second thing is it serves to show what you provide as a product or service, right? So you want to make sure within the exact ecosystem, when they look at you, they should be able to tell what you actually do, right? Not just who you are. They should be able to look at it and say, you know what, this is exactly what I should do, right? Third thing is it serves as to show the type of clients you serve in the market, right? And I'll go into details of these things. So here's what I want you to really pay attention to. Rome wasn't built in one day, right? So that's something that you got to be careful about. And when you look at all these different things, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with like, man, I got to set up this, I got to set up that. I feel like I'm behind here. I feel like I got to set this up. I got to hire this guy. I got to find this thing. Like it's going to be a rabbit hole of activities and list of things that you have to do. But what I will do is give you a checklist that you want to follow after the call. So for those of you that are on the call, just message me. I haven't created it yet. After the call, I'll go through and create an Excel checklist that you guys can have, and I'll just post the link in the streaming just so you guys have a chronological checklist of everything you need to do. But you want to think about your prospecting lighthouse with relation to omnipresent marketing methods. So if you're not familiar with omnipresent marketing really is, it's the idea of swarming a client, right? So it's the idea of swarming a prospect. So like, let's say you have a prospect. They should be, like you should hit them up in like multiple channels where they feel like, man, when they get on the internet, they should feel surrounded, right? You ever opt into like one of those Grant Cardone things and then you feel like, dude, I am stuck in this ecosystem of sales. And that's what you want from your business to your prospect, right? Which is all a good thing, right? And I love Grant Cardone stuff, by the way. He's one of the best that you want to learn early on in the sales process. As you grow and get advanced, there's going to be better resources that you're going to be able to find. But either way, regardless, from your business, your prospects should have multiple channels that are attacking them, right? So, but it's important that you go in a chronological order of how you attack them. There's no need for you to launch paid ads today. You need to have organic stuff set up before you can launch paid ads, okay? Here's the thing. If you have a good offer organically, it'll work with paid ads. If your offer is garbage, it's gonna stink with paid ads. You're adding fuel to the fire, right? Whether it's good or bad, right? So first thing's cold email, right? But these are the other channels that I want you to think about. Personal branding as its own channel, right? your Facebook, Instagram DMs. Now, I'm aware you cannot send that at scale and mass, huge numbers, but you want to have a person that's handling that for you. Sometimes your cold email guys can do that for you, but you want to make sure that activity is checked off and it's actually happening, right? Then groups, Facebook groups themselves, right? LinkedIn. Now, all these channels, it's going to change based on what industry you're serving and what type of clients you're serving and where they hang out. These are generic standard that I know that works in most industries, right? Like, for example, LinkedIn. When I had my automotive agency, guess what? LinkedIn only worked for dealerships, and I was not excited to go work with dealerships. Everybody else was not hanging out on LinkedIn, right? Your repair guys, your lift kit guys, your oil change guys, they're not on LinkedIn. They're on their cars, right? So you got to pay attention to where you set up your channels. But think about your prospect getting multifaceted. They're just getting so many different things from you, and collectively what that does is creates a sense of authority, right, and a sense of expertise that you don't have to talk about. Okay, now here's the thing that I'll tell you, the one of the biggest secret to successful sales, right? Don't sell somebody that you have to sell so cold, right? Why struggle and sell somebody that is so cold? Why not warm them up by the time they come to you, right? And how warm do you think they will be if they went through these channels around your brand by the time they get on a call with you? Right? By the time they get on a call with you, they should see your personal branding assets. They should get a cold email. They should see you at an event, trade show with your booth or a person, or maybe you're speaking on the stage. It doesn't matter. You're there in the thick of things, right? Paid ads, obviously, right? Direct mail. Direct mail is one of the most secret sauces in blue collar industry. That thing works, right? If you're going after blue collar stuff, direct mail works for agency prospecting, right? Not even for them as a client, but for you as a provider, right? Power Partners. Power Partners is something I'm going to talk about today, right? But regardless, here's the thing. You want to think about omnipresent marketing, right? And that's the real key to winning, right? And you'll figure out your channels. Now, when is a proper timeline to create a prospecting lighthouse, right? We're talking about a lighthouse where if somebody were to look you up, what do they find online, right? So the best thing is obviously earlier the best, right? But typically it is needed after you set up your first organic channel. Okay? In other words, you need to launch your first organic channel, even if you don't have an offer, even if you don't have a product that you believe in just yet, even if you don't have a service that you believe in just yet. Okay? You need to launch, because it takes time to launch. It takes 2 to 3 weeks sometimes to get your cold email up and going, right? Sometimes you got to go through like 2-3 different VAs before you have a high volume system. Then you can figure out your messaging. By then, what you're going to do is set up your prospecting lighthouse, which is what I'm really talking about today, right? Most cases, guys, cold email is the best organic channel to set up initially, because people use email in almost every industry. Whether they answer to your email or not, that's a different problem we can solve. Okay? But you must know the medium of email works. Same thing with cold calling. Cold calling is laborious, but people pick up their phones. You just have to have the right system around it and high volume around it, and it's hard to execute, but so people don't do cold calling, right? But regardless, it works. It's not an old medium that's not being used. It's just not used the right way, right? So 3 organic building blocks of the prospecting lighthouse that I want to talk about today, okay, is really, if anybody wants me to, if you want to be the guinea pig and you have an agency funnel or a SaaS funnel that's ready to go, and especially if you're not marketing to marketers, okay, if you have a funnel that's already set up for like an industry, right, a client, I'm happy to go through it right now for like 2-3 minutes, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean by a couple of examples. But 3 things, okay? 3 building blocks. You got to remember this. Your cold email is being set up, right? Now you have 3 building blocks on the prospecting lighthouse that you have to build out. First thing that you want to pay attention to is your agency funnel. Notice I didn't say website. I didn't say anything about your Facebook account, your Instagram account, like your social media profiles for your brand, none of that stuff. I'm just saying a simple SaaS agency funnel. Whether you do an agency by itself and you're not doing SaaS, it's fine. You need to have a centralized place where people can reply to your cold email and go there if they want to, or look you up and they have the right information. Okay? So 3 building blocks. First thing is the SaaS agency funnel, right? The second thing is personal branding, okay? Now, I don't want to spend so much time on personal branding, but here's what you need to figure out is if they go to your Facebook profile or Instagram profile, does it smell? Does it taste? Does it look? Does it sound like you? And does it look like somebody from that industry? Right? If I'm going to go after a dental client, I better look like a dentist and feel like a dentist. I should, position myself as if I own a practice, right? And those are things that you want to pay attention to. The third thing is the power partnership, and I'll talk about that, okay? Let's see. Paul says, what if you're in Canada and you can't do cold calling or cold emailing against the law? Well, a good amount of Canadian agencies, they prospect in the US, right? So you have to be agile in what's going to matter to you. In a lot of scenarios, you won't be able to do certain things. So I don't want to address like the edge case scenarios, but cold emailing is still very effective in the US, okay? And both agencies that I built were in the US. So my examples are more than likely going to be from my US experience. If there's anybody else that can comment on the Canadian cold emailing, feel free to jump in and provide that information. But here's the first thing that I want to talk about is building block number 1, your SaaS and agency funnel, okay? How many of you guys have read, those married folks in here, how many of you guys have read The 5 Love Languages, the book, right? My wife bought that for me. I didn't read it for like 2 years, by the way. Then I finally cracked it and read it, and I realized, man, I've been doing this thing backwards for a while, right? And if there was a 5 love language book for the business world, one of the biggest things that they will say about funnels and websites and social media platforms is the language that you use is typically around features, right? It's typically around the tech. It's typically around random things of how you would provide the service, but not the benefits of the service that you would actually provide, right? So really the first thing that you want to pay attention to is, if I read your SaaS funnel today, if there are any volunteers, I'm happy to have you share your funnel and I'll read through it and I'll show you like 1 or 2 examples out of it, right? But honestly, if it's talking about two-way texting, you're talking about a feature. That's like half the room. They're like, crap, that's exactly what I have on my headline. Two-way texting system for the dental practices, right? Right? So you want to pay attention to that, right? So what should you talk about if it's not features? It needs to talk about what they really want as an end result, right? So if they want Invisalign patients, you need to talk about your system providing 5 or 10 new Invisalign patients to the business. That's what their language should talk about, right? The second thing you want to pay attention to is the sales process design. Is your funnel and your system, right? Your agency funnel or website or whatever you want to talk about. I really think funnel is more than enough. But is the sales process built around a 1-call close? Is it around a 2-call close? Or is it demo-less? Okay? When I was at Christine Seal's mastermind a couple of months ago, I had a gentleman that came and asked me, hey, Paulson, should I do a demo for SaaS? And I thought it was really interesting because, like, really, it's going to matter how you envision your sales process. If you're somebody that has a lot of organic traffic and you have an audience, you can go demoless, okay? But if you're an agency owner and you've never done SaaS before and you don't have thousands of people in that industry following you every day, like hoping to see if you're going to put out some content, if you're not in that kind of a position, you would have to do a 2-call close. In some industries, like blue collar industries where they don't have time for a 2-call close, you can do a 1-call close if you have appointment setters and you're qualifying those calls. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time on the phones. Okay? So 2-call calls is what I recommend if you're going to go down the route of providing agency services in addition to the SaaS services at the end of the day, because you have to explain your agency services, right? They're not going to... How many of you guys had prospective clients for your agency that bought Facebook ads from a funnel? Anybody? Nobody, right?
Can you say that again?
How many agencies have random funnels where clients just get in line and just buy Facebook ads and Google ads from a funnel? Not that many, right? It's services. Why? They need to know, like, and trust who is behind the service, right? So when you're running a SaaS hybrid agency that combines services and products, you don't have the luxury of a demoless process because you have services attached to it, right? They'll be like, well, I see the system, but I still need to talk to somebody about Facebook ads, right? They're going to be in this little funny situation when you have the hybrid offer, which I don't think it's a bad thing. Right? It's not a bad thing, but pay attention to your sales process design. And that's the number 2 that I'm talking about when it comes to the funnel. If you're doing SaaS only, you can do a demoless process if you have an audience. Most people launching SaaS with high level today don't have an audience. You have to build that audience, right? So until that audience is built out, you cannot copy the high level funnel and think that you're going to convert something. Does that make sense? Right? A lot of people, you just go to gohighlevel.com and you're like, man, I see what they did. I'm going to duplicate it for myself. But you don't see 200,000 people on my list that I can cater to. Right? I have a contact list that is massive that I can use for so many different things. I can run custom audiences to it. I can run offers against it. I can do cold email marketing if I want to. That luxury is not there. Most of you, if anything, if you watch the cold email class, I'll tell you to scrape the industry. They're not your audience. That's just a scrape list that everybody else owns in the industry too, right? Audience is when they know you, they know who you are, right? They recognize you. And that's when you can go the demoless process. So typically the demoless process is something you can implement after you have your case studies, your great reviews, testimonials, and you're out of beta. You have probably 2 offers, maybe an upsell, right? You have some sort of traction in the industry and your product is fitting the market. That's when you can go demoless, because demoless ads are expensive. This thing will skyrocket your costs really quick. Okay, don't be fooled by a lot of those guys that are getting cheap leads with their demoless process, because they don't tell you they're calling them 5 other times afterwards to close the deal, right? So the third thing is overloading the offer too much. When I go to your SaaS funnel, your agency funnel, like just really simply just talk about what you're going to do for the client. You don't want this huge long list of like everything that you have ever done, like talking about 50 features, so many different things. Like you don't want your clients, your prospects to really get overloaded with information, okay? So don't overload the offer. It needs to be simple, and your call to action needs to be simple. And you need to talk about what the process is in the funnel. Okay? When you go to the funnel, you should read out exactly how your sales process will go. Hey, you want, for example, you want, Brad, for example, in your industry, right? You want those after school program owners to like read what will happen if you opted in. hey, my name's Brad. If you opt in here, what's going to happen is we're going to call you on an introductory call. From there, we'll determine whether this is a good fit together for us to work. After that, we'll schedule a demo with your team and show you exactly how you can get enrollees for your school. Right? And matter of fact, you can go ahead and schedule. Meanwhile, I'll go ahead and send you 2 other people that we worked with as a reference if you want to, or I'll go ahead and email you some case studies or even case studies. The way you got to position is like, hey, here's what I did for Rich. Don't call it a case study. We know it's a case study from like a tech perspective, but I don't call anything case studies. I'll say, hey, did I tell you what I did for Dr. Dave?
Hey, can I jump in right there?
Yeah.
So we just onboarded a martial arts school actually, and it was crazy, dude, because you're so used to getting complaints from as an agency owner, and like when it's a compliment, you're like, "What? You talking to me?" And this guy was like, "Man, this is amazing," and it was a hybrid. So I just set up his ads. The way we're doing it is like I set up the ads, they do the communication. We have trainings and tutorials, and so he's like, "Yeah, this is great." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And so I'm trying to think, how can I use that as, like you said, a case study with cold gyms to be like, hey, this jiu-jitsu school just got this success. How would you?
Oh yeah. So when we go into Power Partners, I'll share a little bit more of how to leverage good scenarios like that.
Okay.
Ultimately, you want to think of human to human experiences, right? Like, how can I get Brad to talk to Rich about me? Right? How do I reward Brad to do that? Right? Like, you got to think through on those steps, and that's when you can leverage systems like that. But quite often, you wanna record it. Like all of you that message me randomly on Messenger, and you tell me, "Yo, Paulson, like, SaaS Fast Track has changed my life. This is great. I appreciate you doing this." All of you that send me that, I screenshot that and send it to Chase. Chase doesn't even post it, but it's being recorded. Right? We're just keeping track of it. And I can say on average, like, this many people will give me a positive feedback or a negative feedback. And I can be like, this week I had 20 feedbacks, 10 were positive, 8 were questions, 2 were negative. Like, I can figure that number out. Worst case scenario, you want to start recording it. But I'll go into the Power Partner side where that might help you, Brad.
Okay.
So the third thing is, the fifth thing is this. Timeline requirement. Now, an agency funnel is a rabbit hole. You guys can worship that thing for 5 months. I promise you. I've done the same thing. You want it to be perfect. You want to make sure you don't have any drop-offs, okay? But one thing I'll tell you about that agency funnel, because it's about you and your business and your brand, the way you position it, there's so much like biases that you build in your mind when you're working on things like this. It's so easy to drown yourself into 2-3 weeks on that. Give yourself maybe 2 to 3 days max, maybe a day if you want to, if you're fast enough. But decide, you know what? Today's Monday. By Wednesday at noon, whatever the heck it is what I'm going to launch with. Give yourself that timeline and cut yourself off so you can go to the next item, right? If you had an employee or a team member that you're working, you're going to give them a deadline, right? So give yourself a deadline as you're going through these things, okay? So that's building block number 1, SaaS agency funnel. Pay attention to the language that you use. It cannot talk about features. People don't care about features. They care about what you can do for them, and that's what the messaging should be, okay? If you have a 5 or 8-year-old child, okay? If you had them read your funnel, could they explain the funnel to you? Could they tell you in 2-3 words or sentences what you do as a business? If you don't think an 8-year-old can do that, your language is way too complicated. Okay? Number 2, the building block is personal branding, okay? I personally don't do personal branding anymore because I had to shut down my agency, right? But when let's say, and one of the hardest things about personal branding was like, I wasn't ready for my entire round and tree of cousins and family, everybody to like really dig into my business, right? So what I did was like set up a second Facebook profile, and I set up a second Instagram profile and started building those profiles specifically for the industry. Okay, and so if you're not comfortable sharing your own personal stuff and mixing personal and business together, I recommend you just starting a second profile and start curating the content around it and building it through. Okay, so first things first, case study versus no case study. Okay, if you have a case study in the industry, great. If you don't, I'll share with you exactly how to leverage people in the industry for case studies. Let's say you're starting off with no proof in the pudding and you're getting ready to do some trials. Okay, what you want to do is simply ask your prospect, hey, no pressure, but I think a lot of people should learn more from you as a business owner of how you're building your business. Would you mind jumping on an interview with me? And I just want to talk about your business and just kind of help people understand how you're running things. Would you be interested in doing that? So you get on a interview style conversation with this prospect that you haven't done any business with, and you have no case studies, and you give them the platform to the audience you have. Right? So early on, guess what I would do? I would reach out to like expert dental practice coaches and like dental people, and I would be like, hey Brad, you mind just jumping on an interview with me? I would love to just showcase your business. I think people need to learn more about how you do business. And I don't talk about me. I don't even try to sell them on anything. I just want them to be on my platforms talking about the industry. Positioning myself with them in the industry is what I'm really doing. Right? So if you don't have case studies, start doing interviews and let them talk about themselves and their businesses in the industry. So guess what happens after a couple of those? When somebody goes to your Facebook profile, when somebody goes to your LinkedIn pages, when somebody goes to your Instagram pages, there are people in the industry talking about the industry on your platform. To me, it's even better than a case study, because case study is what? What is a case study? Hey, I can bring you more patients. Is that what you're really saying with a case study? Yeah. If they know, like, and trust you, do they need a case study? No. Right? Are you guys following me so far? Right? This is an easy way to jump into an industry. If you're brand new to the industry, find the most loudest people in there. And you can find them all in Facebook groups.
Hey, Paulson.
Yeah.
Can I just, for everybody on this call, listen to what he's saying, because I actually went through some training a couple years ago. What he is telling you works, unequivocally works.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate you, man. So when somebody looks at you as a business and your brand, they just need psychological confirmation that you're not going to take advantage of them. Right? I had a guy who essentially was working like a VA agency himself in India. It was, I don't want to mention any names, but either way, he was like, Paulson, how do I get into the US market, man? I'm like, here's what you do. When you talk to a prospect, tell them that you're going to charge them and not exchange the money that's in the bank account. That's what you need to tell them. Right? So I would be like, hey, go sell Facebook ads and tell them, hey, this $1,500 that I'm charging you, I'm going to leave it in my account and I'm not going to use it until you feel comfortable with the service. And when you feel comfortable is when I'm going to withdraw the money. How much more trust can you create? That's better than a Facebook ad case study. Okay? So these are all things that you want to pay attention to. When somebody looks up your personal, so your Lighthouse guys, right? 3 things, your Lighthouse, really, that's required. Your cold email is launched. The next thing is your funnel, your SaaS funnel. Look at the language, call to action, all those things. The next thing is your Facebook profiles, your Instagram profiles, and your LinkedIn profiles, if LinkedIn is relevant, okay? And all those should either have case studies if you have them. If you don't, people in the industry should it should be posted on there with interviews, right? The third thing that I want you to pay attention to is your email signature. Now, why do I think email signature is a very clever way to do this? Well, email signatures will help your SEO quite a bit if you set up a YouTube channel and drop a YouTube thumbnail in your signature. So every time you send an email signature out, guess what? Something that you're providing as value in a video in a YouTube channel is being optimized. Okay? If you grab one of those interviews that you got from the industry experts that you use on your Facebook profile, but you ended up, if you loaded that into a YouTube channel, grab that link and threw it into your email signature, what does that feel like? Man, this guy's everywhere. Golly. I feel like he's following me. That's exactly what you want them to do. Why? Because when they finally jump on a freaking phone call. Hey man, I've been watching your stuff for a while, bro. Like I know what you do. That's all right, cool. Why do we even do a phone call then? Why didn't you just buy in the funnel? Then you go through the demo list process, right? But ultimately, this is the feeling that you should create for your prospects. So cold email gets launched. Your SaaS agency funnel gets optimized with the right language. Your personal branding. Your personal branding could be set up in like 2 days. Okay? The problem is when you try to perfect the colors, the fonts, the sizes, trying to find your wedding pictures from like 10 years ago, right? That's what I did. I'm like, dude, I got a little chubby since then, so I got to find the best pictures. That's what I did to myself. And I'm like, crap, I spend a week finding a profile picture. Right? You guys are all laughing. I see you. But these are the things that us business owners go through in building a business. So silly, but this is what we do to ourselves, right? So get out of these little traps and just get launched, okay? Email signatures is a really clever way to drive traffic to your funnel, your YouTube channel. And no, you don't need to build out a YouTube channel. You just need one video in your YouTube channel. When they go to the channel, they should all go back. That channel should have the links to your funnel. You don't need to build out 100 videos in your channel and build out another project. No, just leave it alone. We're going to go back to prospecting. Okay, so timeline, I would say maybe a day or two. The third thing that I want to talk about, and then we can finish the conversation, we'll do a Q&A. The third thing is something that most people don't talk about, okay? It's a power partnership program. Okay, how will I build a power partnership program? So a couple of things you want to pay attention to is the affiliate model versus referral model are two different things. Okay, affiliate means, hey, I'm gonna leverage my audience to bring you business, right? My audience. I will be catering your product and services into my entire audience. That's how affiliates function. Referral partner is like, hey, I may have individual referrals here and there, but I don't know if it's consistent. But whenever I get a referral, based on each referral and the ticket size, we can exchange commissions. That's the way it works, right? So in small business realm, what I would do is a referral model, okay? If you're doing SaaS by itself, you can build out an affiliate program. But guess what? You don't have paid ads running. You don't have multiple organic channels running. The only thing we talked about is cold email. So even for affiliate model, it's too early for your SaaS, okay? But referral model is what you want to pay attention to, especially as you build out SaaS hybrid, okay? Commission structure that I recommend. If you're early in the business, give away the farm. It's okay. It'll come back, okay? If you have to give somebody 80% of what you make, it's totally okay. 20% of something is better than zero. Okay? After a couple of clients, so you can do a couple of different ways. You can say, you know what, Brad, the first 5, I'm going to pay out 80%. From then on, we'll be at 50% commission just to see how quickly you can bring in referrals, right? And I also want to understand the type of referrals you would bring in, right? So who actually qualifies for a power partnership? Somebody that you just got. So first things first, if somebody launches in your SaaS or agency services, whatever, speed to result is so important. Like you want to get them something to feel good about as quick as you can. Okay? Like even if you got, let's say you launch Facebook ads. If your first lead comes in like 2 days or day, call the client and tell them, hey, we just got our first lead coming in already. Celebrate that for like 10 seconds. Okay? Just let them know something positive is happening. Then guess what? They still have to know, like, and trust you after the sale. Right? This is where account management comes in. So you want to really pay attention to how you're positioning all these things, right? But ultimately, Brad, you said you had somebody that was just like raving about your product offering, right? Right at that point, guess what? I'm glad you mentioned it. Let's say Rich was your client. I'm going to be like, hey, Rich, you know what, man? I am excited for you. Can we jump on a quick call? I think I have something to offer you. And you get on a call. It's like, hey, man, I really think you got some results really quickly that I wasn't expecting. And I think your system, your teams are really loving it. Can we formulate a business partnership of some kind? I want to just give you 50% of the revenue of any business that you bring to the table. No obligations. If you don't bring anything, no problem. But I just want to give you this opportunity because I'm not going to give this to anybody and everybody. If you did that with every client, what would happen to your ecosystem? It's somebody else. You internally build a sales force. Our affiliate program is one of the most powerful sales forces on earth right now. I promise you. Right? We have some really strong people. Our referral programs, same thing, right? So either way, Brad, you have to leverage a positive experience and position it right when that happens and introduce the Power Partnership Program. And it's a conversation. Don't go building out, building out systems and all this stuff. Just have the same exact template that you used for signing the contracts or whatever. You can just add an area that says commission structure, affiliate program, referral program. For every lead referral that you send me and closed, I'll give you 50% or 80% for the first 5. You can just structure that out, let them sign it after that, and guess what? If they bring in 5 extra clients that you don't have to work on, that works. Organically, guess what happens? Now you have cold emailing, your personal branding channel is working, and now you have somebody else talking about your business and they're being rewarded for it. Right? Then the marketing process on the messaging is the third item that you want to pay attention to. You have to set the expectation with Rich on how you want that transaction. Hey, Rich, as soon as you have a referral, I want you to send me this email. Here's an email that you should use. And that email is going to say, hey, Dave, I want to introduce you to Brad, who did this XYZ for me, and I think he'll be great for your business. Connect on your own. Let me know how it goes. Here's Brad's cell phone number. Give him an email template that he can just send out and create that structure that says, hey, you got to send me a formal email. Because what you don't want is the client just two-way texting somebody in the middle of the night and they're like, hey, here you go. And you can't even keep track of it. And then there's no you want to even say subject line referral partners. Right? Like what you only keep track of it, right? You don't want them just randomly texting you, phone calling you, because you have to build a sales team later, right? So when you get there, then you don't want to rebuild this process, right? Every other month, anytime you have onboarding calls, anytime you have account management calls, you can send out a follow-up email that says, remind us to tell you about our Power Partner program. You're like PS, one line. That's all it has to say. It doesn't even have to be a formal email. They will ask you about a Power Partner program later, if they believe your product. Okay? Then setting the expectations from the brand beta launch. One of the best times to create partners, if you feel confident, is during the beta, right? As soon as you bring in a few business owners and say, hey, I'm building a software company, I would love for you guys to have a round at it before I blow this thing up. I'm happy to give you 70% of commission on every subscription every single month. Right? I know plenty of agencies that retire their clients with these things. This is not a random mystical thing. This is something that people implement all the time, especially in bigger agencies. Okay, you as a freelancer, you can do this.
Paulson, can I add to that real quick?
For sure.
So I won't say his name, but there's a guy in high level that I'm really good friends with, and he has med spa niche, and like, dude, he's built it to I think like 140,000 just off referrals. So like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I can.
Hello.
I know two agencies that have over 100 partners, and they're just franchisees, affiliates, influencers in the industries, coaches. So guess what happens when you finally go to an event and trade show? The freaking place is filled with their affiliates and referral partners. It's a beautiful feeling, I'm telling you. And I had friends that will just sell on stage in the middle of their conversation on the stage. These partners would just yell out like raving fans. Like it just like, this is when you go to mastermind and random dudes will throw like a wallet at the guy that's pitching because they're referral partners. Right? They have some kind of deal together, so they throw wallets at each other, right? You see that happening all the time. But ultimately, remember, cold email gets launched first, right? Then your SaaS funnel, right? That's gotta happen next. Then your personal branding stuff. If you don't feel comfortable with mixing personal and business together, set up a second profile in all those areas that's relevant to the industry. Okay? The next thing you do is, as soon as you start getting small wins, all your small wins, turn those into power partnership opportunities. And it's okay if you don't close them. It's okay, but you want to expose them to the opportunity. Okay? Was this helpful today? Okay, let's do an open discussion, guys. Anything you want me to add on? Anything you guys want to talk about? Rich, go ahead. Guys, it'll be really easy for me if you guys raise your hand with the emoji, and I can go in order of anybody that wants to chat or add to what I've said. Go ahead, Rich.
Well, I just want to add to that, Paulson, that if you don't want personal and business, especially in the realm of Facebook, if you're going to set up a separate profile, do it as a public figure profile. That way you can actually market and send out marketing messages from that profile that you can't as a personal. Outside of that, everything you said is right. I have been a subscriber for High Level for a little over a year and a half. I've only recently started making money from it because I fought everything that everybody else told me to do. And now the power partnerships, actually, I brought some people on that we're going to blow it up in 2022. And so everything you said is spot on.
And Rich, what industry are you in? Have you guys picked an industry yet?
Yeah. So I've got two different brands under High Level. One of them is directly to tree services, but I've taken your hybrid opportunity and really not made it about the marketing, but made it about the complete follow-up. And that's okay. A generalized brand, but that's where my power partners are coming in, because that's a brand I can spin off. I'm not losing anything, and I'm doing nothing but gaining, but these people have a lot of momentum and a lot of followers in the world.
Yeah. And that's the key, is leveraging the opportunities. You also, here's the thing, like, somebody who has influence is not necessarily like a good power partner. You really want to look at their audience activity level. I rather go with somebody who has less audience and they have more activity with that audience. Somebody who has more engagement, somebody who's constantly talking to them, right? Like, it doesn't matter, like, size of the audience don't matter. So power partners, here's what I pay attention to. I don't care if they're like a industry expert. I want to know how many people in the industry respect them, whether they're an expert or not.
And that's exactly why I chose these ones.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the way you have to look at it. So great comment that helped me kind of add to that. Let's go back to Brad. We'll go to Ray and then Vanessa. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, if you could just expand a little bit on overloading the offer, because I had a call with a client the other day who's using our High Level, but he's still paying for a product called Community. And it's like $97 a month, and it's just texting. It's like having your own texting group. It's like it's a basic version of Podium or something like that. And I was dumbstruck. 'Cause I'm like, man, I've communicated that we do all these things at no extra cost. And I feel like our offer is still too much of like, we do so much. And like, I feel like with community or with Podium, it's like, we do this, we do one or two, maybe three things.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that?
Yeah. So well, your client is using another system on top of yours. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, I feel like we try to throw everything out there, even with the grocery store model that you've educated
Yeah.
us on of having a meal. But the problem is it's a 7-course meal, so it's like we have so many different features that provide these benefits, and I feel like I need to
Yeah.
reduce it.
Yeah, it's the messaging around it that'll help you reduce it. It's not even the delivery, right? So in my mind, when you talk about it and when you're having these conversations with your clients, odds are, I don't know what you said, but the perception they have is that you do multiple things. Your system does multiple things, right? So for them, they have a hard time mentally extracting away all these individual things that your system could do and replace it. They're not looking at it like that. They're like, oh, this is a better system on top of what we have at best, right? So it's really the conversations that you have to have with them and educate them and tell them, hey, listen, you're spending this much money on this texting system, which I think is great. What are those messages? Can we talk about it? Yeah. I use this for birthdays. Really? You're spending $200 a month just so you can send out birthday messages? Why don't I build out a campaign for you, or better yet, show you how to add some birthday conversations into the system we have, and you can save $200 on a system. Like you can go. So this is all part of your onboarding process when you do compare and contrast of all the systems they have, so they understand where they need to migrate from. Right? You odds are in the onboarding, you probably never had migration conversations, right? So in the future, when you have the onboarding, you want to say, hey, tell me about the systems that you currently use. Here's what we have, and here's what you can migrate to. After the migration, you have to tell them to cancel it. Like you actually have to make the recommendation that it's a good time to cancel it. Like otherwise, they're not going to cancel it. They don't know better to cancel it. They just feel like, well, if this breaks, I have this as a backup. Like that's literally how they would think, right? So it's just a matter of having those conversations, Brad.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ray, how are you?
Hey, good. Great program. Paulson, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm loving all these series.
And Ray, before you get started, if you don't mind, I'm going to stop the recording so that way we have a smaller video going into the YouTube channel.